Hello, welcome back. My name is Anna, aka Brookwillow, and I have another knitting podcast for you today. I have been riding this knitting mojo ever since last fall. It's literally the only thing I want to do. I've kind of put all of my other fiber arts aside except for spinning, and yeah, it's allowing me to share a lot of progress updates with you. So we can get into what I'm wearing today, which is the Aureliano sweater by Claudia Quintanilla from her book Memory Lane that came out last September, I believe. This is a beautiful all over color work, knit in the round, top down. And I like this one because the color work extends all the way to the bottom and the bottom of the body as well. And the reason I like that is because it kind of keeps my interest throughout the entire project. And it's also a very easy color work chart to memorize. And so I don't have to stare at the book the whole time. It's very intuitive and makes for a very relaxing knit. I've been talking about this sweater ever since I cast it on in September, and it has taken quite a while to knit it up. And that's because it's using 2 strands of mohair held together, and those 2 together I think still creates about a lace weight or maybe a light fingering weight yarn. And so you can imagine that a light fingering lace weight sweater would take a very long time to knit up. At some points I did get a little discouraged just because of how slow it was moving, but I really was able to finish this when I went up to a girls trip in Grand Marais last weekend, and it was one of the few projects I brought, so I was kind of forced to work on it, but also the lovely ladies up there were cheering me on the whole time to try to finish it by the end of the weekend, which I successfully did. I knit this sweater up in the size 4, which should have given me a positive ease of about 7 or 8 inches. That's not the case. I didn't end up gauge swatching for this sweater. I just kind of dove right in. And I do know that I have a generally tight gauge. So this did knit up a little bit tighter than I think was intended, but I actually really do like the fit of this sweater. I often go towards garments that have at least 10 inches of positive ease, because I do like to wear my knits pretty oversized. But I think with this style being the round yoke and knit in like a delicate yarn, it makes sense for it to be a little bit closer fitting. And I also like switching up the shapes that I wear a little bit because it just gives me more options on how I can style different garments in my wardrobe. And ever since I knit this, I'm like, wow, I do kind of like a tighter fit. Don't get me wrong, I still like my oversized fit, but I think it has encouraged me to maybe try out more patterns with less positive ease. The yarn that I used for this sweater was the exact yarn that they used in this sample knit, and the same colors as well. It was sent to me for free from Knit Toronto, so I could knit this as a preview knit for the release of the book. Of course, I didn't finish it in time of the release, but that wasn't a requirement. And so this is how they come bundled. It's kind of nice. They come already wound into cakes, so you don't have to wind it up yourself. Just take off the label and you are good to go. I think this is a fantastic mohair yarn, and I definitely would use it again in the future for projects that call for mohair. I used the colors Carrot, so this is the contrasting orange, and then there is Charcoal, which is kind of a darker color in this, Smoke Gray, and then the main color that I used is Billard. not Billard, but Billard. I didn't really keep track of the yardage that I knit this up in, but I was left over with quite a bit of yarn. I think I have like 2 skeins of this left over, 2 skeins of the charcoal, and the smoke gray too. I am thinking of saving up all of my leftover mohair yarn and making a all over color mohair sweater with all of the scraps that I have. I'm not sure exactly what I'll use yet, but I'm thinking, or like what pattern I'll knit yet, but I'm thinking like the spot sweater would be kind of fun because I know that's one that a lot of people use scrap mohair with. But yeah, that's for a different time. But yeah, I'm really happy with this one. And there's one more pattern in this Memory Lane book that I think I would really want to knit that is very similar to this particular sweater, and it's the Azul sweater. So I'll go ahead and show you that. It's probably not lighting up very well. But yeah, so the Azul sweater looks like it's more of a raglan version of this particular one, and I just think it'd be pretty to knit. One slight modification I made, and I don't even know if it could really be considered a modification, but this neckline here, I'm pretty sure I was supposed to fold this down and tack it down to make like a double folded neckline, but I kind of like the mock neck look of it, and I think the edge is like clean enough for it to just work with the sweater. And there's something about the shaping of it, I think it pulls down a little bit, so if I were to fold it down, it would just pull the neckline down even more, maybe? I don't know. But I like the way that it looks, so I just decided to keep it. And if one day I decide that I want it to look exactly like the pattern, I can always go back in and fold it down. So that's my first finished object. I do have one more finished object. This is one that I was planning to knit in my last podcast, and now it's already finished, and it is the weekend hat by Hiromi Nagasawa. I knit this up because I was very inspired by my friends Casey and Marlene. They both made a version of it as well, and I definitely wanted to make my own. I've been wanting a really bright blue colored hat, just as like a big pop of color to pair with maybe more natural colored outfit, and I'm really happy with how this one turned out. I did make a couple modifications for this, so I actually knit this hat twice. The first time I knit it, I did exactly to pattern, and it was just like way too short and small, and I kind of have a small head, I think, and it was still even too small for me. I think the ribbing came way high. It kind of looked like those hipstery hats where they roll them up like 4 times and it just sits really high up on the head. And where I live, it's a very cold environment and I want full coverage on my head. Otherwise, for me, it's just kind of pointless to wear the hat. So I ended up ripping it back out to the ribbing and re-knitting it, and all I did to change it was just add one more repeat of this cable knit, and I think it ended up being the perfect size for me. And the other thing you may notice is the pom-pom on top. That's definitely not called for in the pattern. Recently I was thinking about it, and I feel like pom-poms used to be like really in style. I want to say like 10-15 years ago, like every hat had a pom-pom on it, and then it seems like we've moved away from that quite a bit, and I kind of miss having a little volume on top of the hat. And so the yarn that I had left over was a ball that was about a pom-pom size, and I held it up to the top of the hat, and I'm like, ooh, I really like the way this looks. And so I decided to use up all the rest of the yarn to make a pom-pom at the top, And yeah, that's the other plus side of it, because I just really don't want to have a lot of leftover yarn, and I thought that was a great way to just use it all up. If I really want to, I can take the pom-pom off. All I did was tie it on so the strings are still attached even, so if there's a day where it just isn't working with the outfit, I can detach it. But otherwise, I really like the look of it at the top. The yarn that I used for this hat is from Arbon Textiles, which is a company that I've really wanted to try out for a while. And so they sell it at my local yarn shop. So of course I bought it. And because they had the exact shade of blue that I wanted. It's the Knit by Numbers DK from Arbon Textiles. And I believe the colorway is KBN80. I don't think they make cute names for it or anything. The content in this yarn is 50% Blueface Leicester and 50% Falklands Merino. So sounds like we have some cool breeds in there. I like when they know exactly what type of sheep breed is in the yarn. So yeah, that's the weekend hat. I actually am thinking about making this again because it only took up one skein of yarn, which I think is really nice when projects take up just one skein, because you're probably the same as me where you go to a yarn shop and you really want to support them, but you don't have a project in mind, so you just buy a skein of yarn. I have quite a few of those in stash, so I think it's a great way to use them up. And I'll go ahead and show you the yarn that I'm planning on using to make a second version of this. So this is yarn that I picked up almost a year ago at the Shepherd's Harvest Festival in Lake Elmo, Minnesota. It takes place every May. And this is from one of my favorite local dyers, which is Petal and Hank. They make a lot of beautiful fiber to spin, but also dye yarn, of course, too. So this is naturally dyed with 40% superfine baby alpaca, 40% merino, and 20% silk. It's a DK single ply, and the colorway is olive. And I thought this would just be a really pretty color in a hat, especially close to my face, because I definitely think it's the correct season for me. And so I just think it would look really nice with my features and my skin tone. And so naturally, I think it'd be a nice hat. And I also think it'd be really pretty having just that textured cable knit pattern, and you may be able to see it a lot easier than you do with the dark blue. So the cables would really pop with it. The only thing I might be a little concerned about is two things, I guess, is the fact that it's single plied and it's alpaca. That tends to be a really drapey fabric that it creates. So probably not the best for cables. And as I'm saying that, I'm like now second guessing if that's even something that I want to make with it, but I do think it would make a pretty hat. So maybe I'll just swatch it out and see how it looks, or if it just is way too drapey, then I'll rip it out and use it for something else. On to the whips. I think I'll start out with the project that I've been working on the most, and it is the Highline Henley by Tori. And I am so excited about this. So I'll go ahead and show you how far I am. As you can see, I have the top part down. I've joined in the round, and so now I'm just knitting the body. And I have realized when I'm knitting anything top down, I really do like to finish off the collar pretty quickly, because it just makes me that more excited to finish the project and wear it when this part is finished. And it's a little bit more aesthetic when I'm taking like progress pictures of it too. So if you remember from my last podcast, I did talk about casting this project on, and I had made a swatch and really liked how the reverse side of the fabric looked, and decided that's what I'm going to use as the main fabric on the front. I think it gives just a softer, more rustic look to the whole sweater, and especially paired with these big wooden buttons, I think they just look really well together. So the way that I adapted this is when it says knit, I purled. When it says purled, I knit. And then once I joined in the round, instead of going the instead of going clockwise with knitting, I knit it counterclockwise. So technically I'm knitting the sweater inside out, and I'm just knitting in the round instead of purling every round, because that would be awful. It's working out really easy. It was super easy to adapt it that way. But here's the deal. As I'm knitting this up and I see the reverse side, which is just the solid stripes, I realized I also really like the way that looks too. And so I'm playing with the idea of making this a fully reversible garment. And so I already attached the buttons on this side, and I'm thinking about, I haven't woven in these ends yet, but I'm thinking about attaching 3 more buttons on this side, because I have exactly 3 more of these buttons left. And that way I can wear it either way. And this side definitely gives it a more nautical vibe, which I do really kind of gravitate towards in the springtime, and all the sailboats come out and it just kind of takes over me. So I thought that'd be a really fun way to kind of be able to wear it both ways. Normally I don't like the harshness of stripes, but I think the colors that I chose kind of tone it down a little bit. If I used like a pure white, that would definitely be too much for me, but this is like a kind of, here, I'll show you the leftover yarn. It's kind of a creamy yarn. Speaking of the yarn, this is yarn that I dyed naturally about 2 years ago, and I'm just getting around to knitting with it. But I have been wanting to make a striped sweater with these 2 colors ever since I dyed it up, and now I'm just finally getting around to it. But the dye that I used for the red was Madder and Kutch, and then I can't actually remember, it might have just been, I can't remember what I used for this. I did use a natural dye pigment for it though, so that's why it's not like completely undyed. It's just like a hint of it. I am really loving the way this one's turning out. I think I'm going to get a ton of wear out of it this spring and maybe into summer. Like if I go up north and go camping, I think this is going to make a perfect camping weight sweater. Speaking of weight, I didn't mention the weight of yarn. It's a DK Non Superwash yarn base that I'm using. So yeah, that's the Highline Henley, and this is just has me so excited, especially now that I'm already in the body and I'm just knitting forever. I think I'll be able to wrap this one up pretty quickly here. The next work in progress I have is another new whip, and it is one that I talked about that I was going to cast on. And it is the Quicksand shawl by Hanna Maciejewska from Laine's 52 Weeks of Shawls. And this is how far I am with it. Hopefully you can see all of the texture and pattern in it. This pattern calls for brioche, cable, and lace work. It's kind of like a big deal. And when I first cast it on, I don't really like to read ahead in knitting patterns because I think I get overwhelmed by it and it discourages me a little bit. I just like to take it step by step. And so I cast it on the first page, and I did all of the directions that were on the first page, and the paragraph was maybe like this long. And then I flipped to the next page, and it's 2 2.25 pages of all text, no chart or anything, and every single row is different. So there's no repeating of rows as far as I can tell. And wow, I wasn't really fully prepared for that. I knew this was going to be a really intense, interesting knit, but I wasn't like prepared for the extent of it. But I love it. I love being totally immersed into this project. I definitely have my mindless projects where I can turn off my brain and just knit in rounds forever, but this one just totally grabs my attention. I can't even watch TV or listen to a book when I'm working on this project. I really only can listen to music, but I think for me, it's allows it to be a more meditative knit, because really my brain isn't able to drift off and think about other things. I'm just focused on working on this project. And it's beautiful. I'm so excited to wear this. I think this is going to be a wonderful colored shawl. All of the shawls that I have knit so far are dark or like a lot of color, but leaning dark colors too. I don't have any light colored shawls. And so I think this is going to be a really beautiful addition to my closet. So yeah, I don't think I'll have this done anytime soon. It's probably going to be like something that I'll get to wear this coming fall, which I'm totally fine with. I'm definitely patient enough to wear it because this is a very enjoyable process knit for me as well. The yarn that I am using is Holst Garn. I bought this as a cone from my local yarn shop, Somewhat Local, which is the Yarnery in St. Paul, Minnesota. And the colorway is Maize. I've talked about this cone in the past. I used this yarn to make another shawl, and I just love the fabric that it created, especially for cable and lace work. I think it really shows up well in this. And so that's why I wanted to use the yarn again for another shawl. And you just get so much yarn on that dang cone. I like to wind off the yarn into cakes because it's easier to knit from than having a massive cone. And also I needed to do that because I'm holding this yarn double. This is like also probably a light fingering weight on its own, and it creates like a fingering to DK weight. So I just pull from both ends of the ball. And it makes it a little bit more travel friendly too. Not that I'm traveling with this. This is definitely not going to be a project that I bring to social events or even weekend getaways with people, because I need to just focus 100% on this project. Next up is another new cast-on since the last time we chatted. I think I went a little cast-on crazy, but that's because I finally finished up some projects that were taking a while, and I just got excitement to cast on all of these new projects. So this is a second version of the bandana that is a pattern that I created recently. And I'll go ahead and remind you, here is the first version that I made. I talked about this quite a bit in my last episode, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but I am creating a video tutorial for this pattern, and I thought for the second version that I make, which is going to be used in the video, I wanted to make a cotton summer version of the bandana. Since we're kind of getting to spring summer, I wanted to be able to wear it right when it's done. So I went ahead and cast on the second one, and here is how far I am so far. This color is way out of my normal range, and it's definitely not one that I would have originally chosen. So there's like a little backstory to it. I, as you know, am a Bluesky maker for 2025, and so they send yarn so I can make projects and kind of review the yarn for all of you. Each year that you're accepted into this program, they send a little welcome gift, and they did send me a skein of this yarn. It's their organic cotton sport, and this colorway is Caribbean. I have worked with this yarn before. I'm actually like halfway through a project, like a summer top that I started last summer, and I kind of stopped working on it once fall came around, but I'm going to pick it up pretty soon here. And I knew that I really liked this yarn, but when they sent me this color, I'm like, whoa, I don't ever really see myself using this color, maybe in like color work or something. But as I was thinking about casting on this next bandana, I knew this was the base that I wanted to use because I really like this yarn. It's, I would say, the softest cotton yarn I've ever felt yet. And I thought this would just kind of be a fun unexpected pop of color for me. And I'm envisioning myself wearing it with like a very neutral outfit, similar to that royal blue hat that I made, but with like tans and creams and then just this bright pop of turquoise. I think for how simple of a pattern is, it would still have it be like a conversation piece. So yeah, that's kind of the decision I made in choosing this yarn. I haven't gotten very far. I think I'm going to knit it to be the same dimensions as the yellow version that I made. I'm not quite sure yet how many skeins I'll need to get to that size, so I'm kind of in a testing period, but I have 3 more skeins of this, which I know will be more than enough to finish the bandana. 2 might even be enough, we'll find out. But yeah, this is a video tutorial pattern that I'm making, so that is something that you can keep an eye on soon. My goal is to have the video available probably by end of March sometime, so keep an eye out for that. For my last pattern, I just wanted to quickly update you on how the sock is going, which is another pattern that I'm developing to become a video tutorial. And here it is so far. So I haven't gotten too much further since the last time we talked. I just had like the leg done, but I did do all of the heel. So the heel that I am using is a heel flap and gusset. I extended the pattern, this herringbone stitch pattern, down the edge of the heel, and then it just becomes stockinette on the bottom. Since it's stockinette on the bottom, I imagine knitting the rest of it will go by a lot quicker than the leg portion, and as soon as I get to knitting the second sock, then I will start recording the tutorial for it. I just wanted to get all the kinks out. There's a couple tweaks that I had to make with this sock. There's actually a tweak that I need to make for the second version that is so minor I'm not going to go back and fix it on this one, but I just want it to be a good quality sock pattern that I'll release for all of you. So this will also be a free pattern that I'll eventually release on YouTube as well. Speaking of socks, I do have a little acquisition here that I wanted to show you. It's pretty exciting because another fellow podcaster, Carly Page, is officially launching her natural dye business. And actually the day that this video comes out will be the day that her business launches as well. So I'm going to link all of that down below, and also her video kind of previewing all of the beautiful yarns as well. I'll link it as well, so you should go check it out. But she reached out and offered to send me a skein to try out. And of course I said yes, because I've been following her for a few years now, and she's been naturally dyeing yarn for a long time, and I always just love the yarn that she produces. So I was really excited when she asked if I wanted to try one out. And here it is. This is her BFL sock base, and the color is pink sand. This is 100% Blueface Leicester, and it is an 100-gram skein of yarn. I just thought this was so pretty and a very beautiful neutral color sock yarn that I think would go with a lot of outfits that I have. And I already know what pattern I want to use for the sock. She actually released a sock pattern, I would say like maybe about a month ago, and it's the brick and mortar socks. And I just thought it's a perfect fit to knit her yarn with her sock pattern as well. Thank you, Carly. I'm really excited to work with this, and you should definitely go check out her new business. That's all I really have to show you this week. Let me know what you are working on in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps my channel out. And if you're new here, welcome. Please consider subscribing and you won't miss out on any future content. In the meantime, I hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and we will chat soon. Bye!